Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, welcome everybody. I know I scheduled the stream for 8, but I'm giving y'all a treat, or maybe it'll make some of you upset because you're not gonna come in until 8, but we're starting 9 minutes early. Not much else to say there. Oh, I got really bad news, everybody. I have a tummy ache because I ate a lot of dinner. I know, tragic. Now, before I re-moisten the wet palette here, let's have a quick look at everyone with their finished green armor. I did end up re-highlighting Hackerman a bit because I totally missed edge highlighting one of his feet earlier. We might finish the bodies of all the Spartans today. We'll see. After that turquoise is finished, all that needs to be done is just like a few metallic touch-ups. We do gotta do the fancy glow on the hammer. And then will be the bases. Those are probably gonna happen off stream. We'll see how we go. We're gonna shoot for 2 hours again. No worries, Sparkster. The numbering of the streams doesn't really matter because it's just kind of like for my own tracking purposes, or just so they don't all have the exact same title. I don't know if YouTube would allow them to have the same title either way, but if you miss out on like the first 6, there ain't much you missed in those that you won't be seeing in this. But you know, they are available to view after the fact if you like. But I totally get the appeal of being able to watch the stream live and interact in the chat and all that. Let's just add a little bit more water. Also, when the brush wiping cloth starts to get like painty and crusty, I also kind of moisten it at the beginning of the session. Just makes it a bit better. Yes, that's what I'd like to hear, Sparkster, that we're just both hobbying at the same time. Alright, so for the turquoise, we've got our classic scaly green. And I think for the first highlight here, yeah, I think the first highlight we're just gonna use this straight up. I debated mixing in just a teeny bit of our highlight color, which is going to be P3 Arcane Blue. But I think that might be too bright for the first highlight. We'll see. We'll do like one test knee pad or shoulder pad or something. And this paint's old enough you kind of just have to reactivate it with water each time. It's got that nice vintage paint smell, of course. Alright, so let's just paint a quick knee pad and see how this looks when it dries. And I think I'm kind of starting to settle into like some kind of stream schedule, you know, with the caveat that it can't ever be fully consistent because sometimes, you know, you gotta run errands that have to happen at a certain time or whatnot. But like Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, Saturdays seem to be somewhat consistent. But I do have the full-time job to take care of the bills, which has to take priority, so I'm not feeling super pressured to commit to a stream schedule. Maybe a stream schedule light, we'll call it, where I'm just like as consistent as I can reasonably be. Yeah, this is gonna be bright enough, just straight up, I think. Also, this paint is just very strong, it seems. The water is already just nice and turquoise. And like usual, we're gonna shoot for 2 hours. That's a part of the stream I can be a lot more consistent about than the schedule. all this talk of stream consistency as well, I might be a bit premature because I'm thinking 7 Halo Flashpoint streams is pretty solid. I might just bang out the last squad of Spartans off stream so that the next streams will be something different. I'll be making that decision when I'm done the squad of green Spartans, aka Fireteam Cerberus, I believe. I got the box over on the shelf somewhere. Yeah, I'm liking how this turquoise is looking so far. Also, it's been funny seeing my subscriber count kind of fluctuate up and down a lot since like returning from hiatus. It's like a combination of people unsubscribing because I'm not like painting Gunpla immediately, or not uploading videos and just streaming, or finding out that I've transed my gender perhaps, combined with just the usual regular uptick in subscribers, which is like pretty normal for YouTube channels once you get to a certain size. But unfortunately with YouTube these days, subscriber count doesn't really matter. It's just kind of like a vanity metric, as they say. Thoughts on the upcoming Gundam tabletop game? You should watch my most recent video, which will be a bit jarring to see me go by a different name and have a beard, but no better way to get my concise thoughts on the upcoming tabletop game than watch that. But I suppose I can give you some brief thoughts while I'm painting here. It's got a lot of potential, but unfortunately is produced by Bandai. And if you just look at how the Bandai trading card game has been going in Canada, or like in my city specifically, there hasn't really been much of a scene developing because supply issues are just so abysmal. The manufactured scarcity is rough. And it didn't take long for me to just kind of give up on the Gundam card game when I heard about what the cost and supply is going to be like. And so I'm not really, I don't have my hopes up for Gundam Assemble. I don't really have much to say in terms of like what the game's going to be like, because there isn't really much out there indicating what the game's going to be like. Like there's a few bits and pieces here and there, but otherwise it's like, oh well, it's going to be on a hex grid. Figures are going to be about this big, and it's going to use D10s. And like the release date is still kind of ambiguous, I believe. It's just like sometime in 2026. Maybe like Q2 if we're lucky. Hello, Jotaro Kujo 3782. Or is it 3782? And yeah, that your comment, Sparkster, about sheer choice of war games, that's the never-ending dilemma right there. If I'm like thinking along those lines, it's like, well, I got enough tabletop war games to last me for years. I never need to pick up a new one. I'm like only focusing on 2 right now. That's Conquest and Halo Flashpoint, and I barely have time for those, it feels like. I have been playing a decent amount of Magic the Gathering Commander as well, though. Ooh, I'm really liking how this turquoise highlighting is bringing everything together. I was worried the green was just gonna make them look like a bunch of Master Chiefs. But Master Chief don't got no turquoise. Thanks, Jotaro. You want to start painting? What do you mean by which you should focus on first? Like what? Like which model to paint, or like what kind of painting? Can you be a bit more specific? If it's like what model you should paint first, if it's your first time painting anything, I'd suggest a nice low risk entry grade. Don't try and prime it by hand, that gets very frustrating. Try and get some rattle can primer. I'm just assuming you're like going the hand painting route, because a lot of the times that's what people are doing if they're like doing painting for the first time, and also like are interacting with my content, because you know I'm like have a reputation for being a person that hand paints their Gunpla. Oh, what kind of things you should learn first? Just brush control, and like how to apply even consistent base coats. That's all you really need to worry about at first. Just, you know, painting inside the lines essentially. And just painting consistently in terms of like, you know, practicing regularly. The best way to learn, as I've said before, is just to like make mistakes and learn from those and just keep going, keep trying things. I'd say don't try and paint with like cheap craft store paints, because that just will also be frustrating. You don't have to buy like Games Workshop paints, are pretty pricey. Like Vallejo is like pretty cost effective for a decent quality that's like still will have much better coverage than craft store paints. Or by craft store paints, I guess I mean more like dollar store craft paints is what I should be saying. I just have a little bit of this mango bubbly, so perhaps there will be a burp or two. I opened it a while ago, it's not so crunchy anymore. It's lost some of that bubbly. Because, you know, I ate dinner before this. As I said earlier, I got a tummy ache. That's when I drank the majority of the can selfishly. I should have saved it for the stream so I could provide more burps for you all. I'm sure there's a couple of you watching, they're like, I'm glad they're not burping, because that would make me leave the stream. Not everyone wants the chill painting vibes interrupted by a boisterous burp. Yeah, lots of little edges on this shoulder panel that will possibly get some metallic details or some just like silver dotting to finish them off. Doing the second round of edge highlights is going to be the tricky part. What are you working on tonight, Sparkster? By the way, I forgot to ask. You said you were painting something, I believe. If you're just lurking and want to keep it a secret, though, no problem. Lurking is always acceptable in my streams. Yeah, some of the details on this helmet kind of blend into each other. Or just in these Spartans in general, not gonna lie. In some ways makes it easier to paint and paint with like less stakes to it, but in other ways it's like, you know, the details are a bit harder to pick out, so it's a bit of an extra challenge. Alright. I think that's the first layer of turquoise on the spiker done. Let's move on to shotgun. Tau battlesuits, very nice. Those have some nice panels to edge highlight, let me tell you. No, these are straight up like licensed Halo miniatures, Jotaro. It's for a tabletop game called Halo FLASHPOINT by Mantic Games. Imagine a war game that kind of masquerades between like a miniature war game and board game, and it simulates like Halo Arena multiplayer, if that makes sense. Alright, we're going to paint the exact same thigh pads, but slightly different knee pads and significantly different shoulder pads on this one. I feel like I missed a knee pad on... Yes, I did miss a knee pad on this one. Good thing I remember that. Could have been awkward otherwise. And by knee pad, I mean calf pad, whatever you call it. Alright, now that one's actually done. That's it overall, the imperfections in the sculpts of these board game tier minis does make them like easier to paint, even though some of the details are harder to pick out. It mostly makes them a bit easier in that there's like a bit less pressure to make them look like stellar, if that makes sense. I'm still like probably putting in more effort than I should, considering the initial approach I had going into this would be as in being like, I'm just getting these ready for tabletop gaming. I just can't help myself though when there's edges to be highlighted, you know what I'm saying? The weather's gotten quite cold where I am now, unfortunately, so the varnishing of these is going to be a slight pain, as it always is in the wintertime, though. I'll make it work. I ain't gonna let chilly weather stop me. But I still gotta make sure I don't poison myself by inhaling a bunch of fumes. Safety first. James Burkshop. I won't tell, don't worry. What you print is between you and your printer. As long as it's for non-commercial use, of course. I mean, you can print things commercially, you just gotta make sure you got the rights. I ain't no 3D printing expert though, as I've stated before. I'm not even a 3D printing novice. Yeah, these knee pads are a bit trickier than the last ones, I must say. Yeah, it turns out it seems like the highlighting process goes way faster when you're doing the secondary color that there's way less surface area of. Who'd have thought? kind of have a feeling that more people are around to watch the streams when I do the daytime ones on Friday and Saturday. But there's always an appeal to, you know, if I'm only given 2 streams on average a week, that like one be evening and one be daytime. Seems like the paint's getting a little thick. But now working on this top panel, it seems too thin. Also, one thing that never stops being annoying when painting is you see this like droplet of water that just collects on the brush. It constantly collects on the ferrule. I constantly have to wipe it off so it doesn't like slide onto the mini and get water everywhere. Hashtag just painter things. Alright, just half a shoulder and the helmet to do on this one. Alright, now just the helmet. Hello, Country Fried Minis. What do you mean more green? The green maxing was last stream. It's turquoise time. Yeah, paint. Well, the palette dried up a bit faster than I was expecting. Hello, Zwaylock. Welcome. I think when I was a kid, I remember saying turquoise was my favorite color. I like so many different colors now, though. I don't know if I could pick a favorite. The gun to my head answer is usually like blue, but I don't know, purple's pretty good too. Oh damn, I just noticed my finger's got a nice green stain on it. I wonder how that happened. Yeah, this guy's helmet only has a teeny bit of a turquoise band on it because it's got a wider visor than the others. Alright, on to 3 of 4. Cherenkov blue is your fave. Can you be? I'm not sure what that one is. Actually, maybe I could just look that up quick. Cherenkov blue. I think I could just copy paste that. Oh, okay, that's cool. It's like a arcane glowing blue. Arcane's not the right word though. I did see in that Google search it was referring to a specific kind of radiation glow. For some reason, maybe it's not for the reasons there somewhere. I always associate radiation glow with being green. Where'd the mixing brush go? There it is. Just need to add a bit more paint to the palette. Coming right up is Waylock. If you came to this stream looking for turquoise, you're in luck. Your favorite color is camo. Is that a cop-out answer? I don't know. I need to take off this cardigan. It's getting a little warm. Alright, on to MC Hammer. Or, I can't remember if it was another Nate or Iron Elemental who was... Call him Traffic Light Man. Because he does kind of look like he's just wielding a traffic light as a bludgeoning weapon. You know, Spartans are super soldiers. Like, I could see one of them just ripping a traffic light out of the ground and wielding it as a weapon. You know, if the traffic light was in the right size and configuration. Where I'm at, the traffic lights are kind of horizontally oriented because of the wind. It's very windy. So maybe not one. Maybe one of the ones around here wouldn't quite work the right way. Also, the pole of the traffic light's like way too long. Because I missed it on the last one, let's just make sure I got all the cav pads. Okay, I did. Cool, cool, cool. And again, the calf pads will be exactly the same, but the knee pads, shoulder pads, and helmet won't. I wonder if the third squad of Spartans will be the same. I assume so. The same as in, like, within that contained squad of 4. The main things that'll look different will be the knee pads and shoulder pads, whereas the rest will be identical for the most part. Alright, calf pads completed on Hammerman, aka Traffic Light Man. These knee pads are have much fewer panel lines compared to the last one. And that's weird, like this knee pad I can see like a visible panel line, but on the other knee it's just straight up not there. Curse these inconsistencies. Oh right, that's right, that's why this guy has a thigh pad, very exciting. Some of the other ones have thigh pouches that were painted a boring gray to look utilitarian and so as to not distract. But this one, it's clearly like thigh armor. Unless I'm just completely imagining it wrong, but it doesn't really matter. Your mini, your way, am I right? And a good chunk of this thigh pad is kind of obscured by the arm. Why just the one padded thigh is what I want to know. Nice, good reference there, Zwaylock. It's been a while since I thought of that phrase. Onto the shoulder pad. The paint is almost a bit too thin down with water. It's like almost a bit too runny to control, but I'm managing. So that probably means by the time I'm done this Spartan and onto Hackerman, it'll be just right because of the drying. And this guy, interestingly, has a... Well, I guess he's not the only one of the squad that has a different pad on each shoulder. Some of them are matching. I do enjoy this one's shoulder pad design. I enjoy most of the Spartan's shoulder pad designs, as a matter of fact. Alright, we've moved on from some ambient music to the classical music, as is tradition here. I can kind of see that the shoulder pad here I missed painting green, or the bicep pad I missed painting green, but you can't really see it, so I think we just kind of gotta leave it as is. Alright, just have a few little bandy bands on the arm here. Don't know what this is supposed to be, but felt like picking out the detail with a different color. Yeah, I'm gonna put a bit of green on that bicep pad. I can reactivate it on the palette. I just can't unsee it now, you know? It's gonna be a bit of a haphazard fix, but it's okay. It's not really that much of a visible area. Yeah, like that's good enough, basically. Alright, just the helmet now. Yeah, I'll admit I blocked in the purple, or the turquoise separation on that panel in a way that made my life a bit more difficult. The struggle will be worth it though, I feel it in my gut. Yeah, these little divots, or these little protrusions on the head here, I think we're gonna give those some silver at the very end. That's what I'm feeling. Alright, now we're on to the turquoise of the 4th Spartan of the squad, Hackerman. Starting with the calves, as always. And by as always, I mean in this particular painting session. These knee pads are looking pretty edgy, especially compared to the last ones. Man, my finger's starting to look like my hair in high school when I dyed it blue and then took a single shower, if you know what I mean. And by dyed my hair blue, I mean just a few streaks. I wasn't that crazy. Damn, it's almost been an hour already. Yeah, I think the main goal for the stream tonight will be finishing the turquoise will be like our minimum goal, finishing the turquoise armor. And then our hopeful goal will be just completely finishing each Spartan sans the bases. Painting the bases will be exactly the same as on the pink and blue squad, which you can go back and watch a past stream of if you want to see how that shook out. So maybe if my energy is doing okay after the 2 hours of streaming, if I can power through and just finish the squad of Spartans tonight, I can have a solid varnishing session tomorrow. That would certainly be a nice accomplishment for this Tuesday night. But that'll just be like a nice to have. I won't put pressure on myself to for sure do that. Minty green freshness all year. Damn, yeah, minty green freshness. That is kind of a way to describe blue hair after taking a single shower. I'm sure there's like better dyeing techniques or like professional dyeing that holds up better. But not when you do it yourself in high school, let me tell you. There we go, burp 1. Update the counter. I'm afraid that might be the only burp tonight. Never say never, though. Alright, knees and calves done, I believe. On to shoulders. Wonder what strains my wrist more, that the actual painting movements or just the swishing the brush around vigorously in the water to keep that brush clean. These are some interesting shoulder pads. I think I still prefer Traffic Light Man's shoulder pads better, but these ones are pretty neat looking. Almost kind of looks like there's some antennas on them. I'm not gonna color separate them into like a silver though. Painted over some recessed highlight there. Gotta fix that if I can. You know, proper brush care involves some vigorous swishing. Probably the more efficient way to clean your brush though is to have, whether it's DIY or like a fancy painter's paint pot that has like ridges at the bottom, or like silicone nubbins that you rub the brush across to like actually scrub it. The tub that I do have my paint water in, I think has like some stuff along the bottom, just like a seam perhaps, just from like the manufacturing process that I can kind of like rub the bristles against, but it's not like as effective as like actual brush cleaning pot. But I don't know, call me old school, but I've always just used random like old ass containers for paint water. I ain't gonna pay like $20 or whatever for some fancy brush swishing container. Yeah, I keep forgetting that Traffic Light Man is gonna have some more time-consuming glow effects. Perhaps I'll do that after the turquoise highlighting is done, and then I'll move on to the metallic details. Yes, befouled with ages of paint. That's a good way to describe it. Yeah, when you get a painting mug, then you get like the clink and the swish. Although I think like when your brush knocks up against the side is a bit like... You can like damage a bit of the glue that connects the ferrule to like the wooden part of the brush. I feel like that's something an art teacher warned me about in high school. And I'm seeing part of that under bicep plate on this arm I forgot to highlight. Whoopsie. Gonna have to reactivate some of that green. You're gonna get your wish, Country Fried Minis. More green. Attack-a-tack-a noise, yep. That's some good automatopoeia there. Oh, the usefulness of a wet palette. What would I do without ye? Just squeezing in a bit of a janky edge highlight in there. Alright, back to finishing the shoulder. Oh, sorry, I don't know how long the camera is out of focus there. Onto the helmet now. You know, I was kind of unsure how this was going to work out when I originally had the like white Under Armour and like green and turquoise planned out, but I'm glad I committed to it, because I'm happy with how it turned out. The main turning point was when I originally had kind of like a copper-ish bronze color for some of the metallic accents, and then I kind of backtracked on that, which I think you can see in one of the streams. And that ended up being a game changer. Oof, these ridges here are a little hard to pick out. Right, and on the other side, there's a bit less because we had some silver detail there instead. You know, more hacking peripherals for Hacker Man, one can assume. Alright, we are officially on to the second stage of turquoise highlighting. Good work, everybody. Took about an hour, so I'm guessing it'll take about another hour. Maybe, yeah, I don't know, maybe about another hour. to finish the turquoise highlights. Alright, now I just gotta guesstimate how much arcane blue was the appropriate amount. There's just a wee bit of turquoise. I mean, there's more than what looks like right now because a lot of it can be reactivated. But we can always add more if this much arcane blue isn't enough, so... Uh-oh. Feels like this is a little bit clogged. Let's not risk an explosion. Yeah, that does look a bit clogged. Well, this is why you buy cheap dollar store brushes for the mixing. You don't want to ruin your nice brush doing that. Okay, let's get a mixin'. Alright, so far this doesn't seem like nearly enough turquoise. Alright, I think we're gonna add just a bit more turquoise from the pot. Ah yes, who could forget the Bob Ross just beating that brush on the easel. Now is that enough? Or too much turquoise? My gut is telling me I just need to add a bit more turquoise in, or the scaly green I should say, in there. Alright, let's see how this goes. After taking a sip of water. And we'll circle back to the spiker, because I think this is the first one I highlighted at the start of this stream. Paint like one knee pad, see how it looks when it dries, and then we'll assess how the mix is. I mean, right now that's looking a bit too bright. Even considering it'll look darker when it dries. Yeah, I think we'll probably end up doing is just like utilizing the slightly darker and slightly brighter parts of the sloppy mess I currently got on the palette and just going with the flow, you know? Classic model Mayhem style. Remember to whack your brush on a nearby solid object while it's covered in toxic paint thinner for the true Bob Ross experience. Hey, you said it, not me. Also, hello Kataki's 241. Welcome. Excuse me, had a bit of a hiccup there. Yeah, this stage of the Highland's taking a bit longer, so probably finishing up this turquoise will take us solidly past the 2-hour mark, I reckon. Alright, I think it's knee pad time. Oh, Katokes and Country Fried Minis know each other, it seems. Wait, I did this knee pad already, so I just gotta do the other one. Though now that I look at that first knee pad I did, I think I could brighten up the highlights just a bit. Ooh, gotta say, this is a very enjoyable color to edge highlight. Alright, leggies are done. Time for the shoulder pads. Because back in the older model Mayhem days, I would just stream for 3 or 4 hours to get all the Spartans done tonight. But I gotta work in the morning. I do think we gotta add a bit of a slightly darker inner edge highlight here because the it is a fairly large flat panel. And let's just bring that back up along the edges, make them a bit crispier. I try to be responsible, Sparkster. Sometimes when you're in the home stretch, though, you really want to push yourself to get it done, and I find oftentimes it is worth it. Alright, let's call this shoulder pad done, I think. Although, just a bit of paint on the brush, I do kind of want to just dab these areas, these knobby bits a bit. Let's just bring them out a little bit more. Okay. No, the undersuit I've gone with a white, actually. I guess it's a very light gray. I did a dark gray for the undersuit on the first squad of Spartans, and I want this one to be a different color, and then I think for the third squad of Spartans we're going to do a red undersuit, perhaps? I haven't fully decided yet. And again, some knobby bits here that I'm just kind of dabbing at. Alright, I think that shoulder is done. Came together a lot faster than the other one. Greebles, yeah. Greebles is a somewhat fitting word, I'd say. Greebles is a nice, fairly ambiguous term you can apply to a lot of different things, I'd say. Yeah, it's taken like 20 minutes just to get the legs and shoulders fully highlighted here. Now, looks like one knee is too dark compared to the other one now. I am just noticing this. Crisping up those edges a bit, Laina. Just do it. Alright, helmet time. Most of these areas are so small I shouldn't have to do more than one pass. Unless, of course, I do a whoopsie. Oh, speaking of whoopsies, it looks like I need to reapply some silver there on the side bit of the head. That must have been when I was painting the shoulder. Whoopsie. Alright, I'm calling the turquoise edge highlight down on this one. So this is what the fully edge highlighted green and turquoise looks like. Pretty poppin', I'd say. It's given Simic from Ravnica vibes, if anyone gets that reference. Even though that is a fantasy thing and not a science fiction thing. Damn, look at how green that finger's getting. On to Senior Shotgun. Alright, palette is... I am feeling a compulsion to add just a single droplet of this arcane blue. I wonder if I unclogged the bottle properly though. No, it kind of seems like we're still clogged. Will this fix it? Maybe I can just squeeze it out. Oh, we need to get something in there. I mean, the amount I'm getting on the brush right now, that's probably the amount I want on the palette anyways, so... Yeah, now I have kind of more distinct, like, 3 different areas of turquoise on the palette to pull from. And much like I had to do with the green on Hackerman, with that one being the first one green highlighted, I might have to circle back to the spike wielder to get it to match the others, because you know, once you get to the fourth one, you've kind of like settled on something more concrete, so to speak. Yes, and the much edgier knee pads of this lad. Gonna darken it down and start a bit thicker. Just gonna compare to the other knee pad quick. Yeah, it's looking right close enough. You did a smart. You didn't glue down the back fends or remove them. It's made painting do this so much easier. Very nice. Yeah, those are very important steps of painting that you mostly learn by trial and error, I'd say. And just painting with painting sub-assemblies in general. Congrats on doing a smart. And as tempting as it is to edge highlight the inner calf a decent amount, I don't want to do too much because it is supposed to be obscured by shadow. Horizontal stripes first. I'm in concentration mode. Hopefully things are staying in focus. How ironic. Things become out of focus because I am too focused on the painting. Okay, time for the last calf bit. Let's call that calf done. Shoulder time. But first, hydration time. These shoulders might be the edgiest ones yet. Yeah, the ODST, I mean, for a couple of weeks now at work, I've been saying, yep, the ODST should arrive any day now. I'm afraid I've disappointed some people, because it hasn't shown up yet. The people who ordered direct from Mantic definitely got theirs. You know, the customers, that is. Which, is fair. Fair for the company to cater to the people who want to buy directly from them. A number 5 brush, that's a thickie. Every brush must be retired into a dry brush or a mixing brush at some point. Just the way things are. need a bit of the brightest highlight. Yeah, nothing like that first stage of just slopping that base coat on. I feel you. You just don't want to slop it on too thick. You gotta work that shit around while it's still wet to get it even. And also make sure you aren't painting any bubbles into it. That can happen sometimes. Oh my god, burp 2. The second burp has hit the stream. Yeah, let's call that shoulder done. Thank you, Country Fried Minis. I can't help but agree with you there. My fingers are looking nice and turquoise, too. Oh damn, I just got some turquoise on the gun. That's annoying. Well, this one and the spiker both have some metallic bits, so they're gonna have to get touched up now. 'Tis no matter. Reconstitute a Baylor Brown from a puck with a knife and distill. Oh, nice. I think I've done this. I've done a similar thing to some old GW paints myself. Multiple times, many such cases. I just need to grab the mixing brush to reactivate a good chunk of this paint here. Funny, on both these guys and the pink ones I painted, I'm pretty sure like the accent color is edge highlighted way more than the main body color. Which is fine. We're in the home stretch now. Gonna end right around 2 hours. My apologies for grossly underestimating how far I was gonna get tonight. Still satisfied with the progress. The rest of these Spartans are definitely gonna be finished off stream. But, you know, giving you a solid 7 Halo Flashpoint streams, which is pretty satisfying as it is. Tentatively gonna say that I'm gonna finish the rest of the Spartans off stream. I'm not sure whether I'm gonna have a little palette cleanser painting in between and knock out a few conquest minis, or just marathon through the rest of the Spartans. Still thinking that over. Either way, there'll be more streams eventually, because I got more minis to paint. I got an endless supply of minis to paint, in fact. Many such cases among the hobby, as I'm sure you're aware. Alright, just a little band on the helmet now. Stroke by stroke, ain't that the truth? Alright, the helmet probably just needs like one pass. Because there's only a teeny tiny bit of turquoise. Of this turquoise, that is. Alright, just comparing the shoulders and knees here. Yeah, those are looking close enough. Alright, I'm afraid we're gonna have to wrap up the stream here. My hand is getting a little cramped, and used up about the appropriate amount of paint to reach a stopping point for now. I've gone over 2 hours by a chunk of minutes the last 3 streams, so I'm going to cut myself a bit of slack. Perhaps I'll end this one at just slightly before 2 hours at 1:58 or something like that. And yeah, I already detailed what I think the next stream is tentatively going to be. Don't think there is much else to cover. Yeah, thank you all for joining me for another Halo Flashpoint stream tonight. Number 7. Perhaps the last Halo Flashpoint one. Yet to be determined. Either way, I'll be back eventually with more live streaming because I have more minis to paint. So on that note, thank you once again, and see you next time.